Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA107 on this Wednesday, July 8th. Welcome to Ottawa, Los Cabos, Canada. It's a hot one. It's a hot day today and I love it. Absolutely love it. And today, with this brilliance of a day that we had, on this very hot day, there was a lot of inspiring conversation that inspired thoughts, right? And one of these thoughts that came out of my mouth today, and I talked about old school values, and I love recognizing old school values, and it's in us. It has to be in us to teach it and to talk about and push it and promote it, right? It comes from us. Where do generations come from? The best generations come from the best generations, right? And children and fracture, and I'm going to go into that. And I want to talk about value, those old school work values. When I say work, I'm talking about all types of work, integral work, your volunteer work, community work, getting a paycheck work, working around your property work, working on your life, working on your relationship, on your marriage, on your children, that kind of work, all the time work, right? I speak of my two daughters, me and my wife, and I'm going to be working all my life for them, right? All my life for them, I'm going to be working for them and providing that kind of stuff. And that circle of life comes back at you, right? And I hope to be that guy that goes right till 105, right till 105 strong, and I'm hope I'm strong right to the end, right? When I look at my dad, he was strong right to the end. And those values that I want to talk about today and that sparked my mind, 27 years of government, 3 different levels of government. I've held positions from the union positions, from management positions, senior management positions. I've also done 30 years in corporations, right? My first corporation, I was 24 years old. In those corporations, my first rental property, I was 23 years old. So combined simultaneously on 2 different tracks, like completely 2 different tracks, because I'm going to explain how they're separate and apart from each other, mindset-wise, right? On 2 different, but parallel. I did that for 27 years, parallel, and then I branched off in 2017, right? And I speak on both groups. I'm going to speak on both groups when it comes to work values. And then when you look at the integral fabric of work values, and I'm going to speak to you, which do you believe would I say that has the most work values between the business world that I've been involved with, sewn it through its fabric for 30 years, or the government world that I was instilled in and grown in and like sewn into its fabric, right? And which one of those had the most, in my experience, in my life, in all honesty, the ones that had the most are those that came in, right? That were taught from the ground up, from birth up, from the like a child. It talks about it. You know, you have your parents and that kind of stuff with the child, and then you have your community. And it talks about a village. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, and the child, you're raising the child for your entire life, right? And that circle of life we talked about a moment ago. When I look at that between government and business, those that have it are in both entities. Right? Those that have it, it is taught through life. Most of those that don't have good work ethics had bad teachings and upbringings, right? Most of those that I've known through life, if you follow this, and there are the exceptions, there's a lot of exceptions where things transpired in a child's life that was introduced. And this is why I've said this to people from day one, my daughters, and like, do not allow somebody to change your path of life. Right, and that's what happens when you expand through life and you grow through life. And I see these inmates that were inmates, and I talked about this previously on EFAs, where some of those inmates, they talked about the dyslexia. The large of these groups of inmates did not get a chance. Like, I saw the goodness in a lot of those inmates, and not all inmates were criminals. There's a lot of inmates. And some of them, it wasn't their upbringing, right? It was their surroundings, right? And they had a good foundation. They had a good foundation, strong parents, strong siblings. I used to see them come into the visiting room at the institutions. And again, I look into people's souls, look into people's eyes. I listen to the word. Everything that you say is 10,000 pictures in my mind. And that's how I see things. But I'm also registering everything about you as a person. Right? And a lot of time it's fragmented, and a lot of time it's very clear, but it comes together. And when you talk to those individuals, a lot of those inmates had very strong upbringings and foundation, right? But what made them an inmate? Why did all their brothers and sisters were CEOs and teachers and academics and ingrained in business and providing members of society and family members? And that 1 out of 6. Why? Right? Why? And then you look at these things through life, and that there are those part of society. That's what transpired. The big part of society, it's your upbringing, right? You have your upbringing, you have your foundation, and you have your surroundings. And in that upbringing and in that foundation, a lot of parents fail at teaching their children. End of story, right? And that becomes part of the upbringing. I remember a lot of inmates, the social skills, right? Great guys, great, no social skills whatsoever. You could be on the phone with the Prime Minister of Canada, the President of the United States, or the whichever president around the world, and they would walk right up to you. Hey, boss, they would start talking to you, right? They wouldn't, no, excuse me, that kind of stuff. And it's because that wasn't taught, right? That wasn't taught. And as parents and those that understand the frontal lobe and that kind of stuff, you're continuously teaching. And whether my daughters roll their eyes or whether my daughters don't want to hear it, I'm continuously teaching. And that's our duty, correct? So when you look at the fabric of our societies, when you look at the strong upbringing and old school values, and there was a gentleman on a job site today, and at the end of the day, and I'm walking through and I'm reviewing the work and that kind of stuff, and that gentleman, he was watering his work and taking care of cement purging work, and he was going through all his work and doing a circle check, checking everything out, etc., etc., etc. That value there was instilled in him and taught in him, right? And that came from a parent that was instilled in them and taught in them. And that integrity and that value in your work. So whether you're in government, whether you're in business, whether you're a volunteer, what do you do in life? Whatever you do in life, that value comes from you and comes from within, from something that was taught to you, whether your parents taught you, whether a society taught you, whether a beautiful soul that did not even give you life taught you. There's people out there that teach all the time, that mentor all the time. And then a lot of those individuals throughout life are because of somebody else's great value that were instilled onto them. And I really, truly believe that. There are those out there that made it on their own, completely. When you look at inmates and some of those sad upbringings those poor souls had, I'm not kidding. When I say, you read people's files, and they were basically, I've seen files of boys that were anally raped and beaten from birth, and foster children, foster parents, foster this, foster that, home this, home that, community center, community that, beaten, rape. What else are you going to have in society after that? What do you, and the fabric of our society right now, when you look at societies throughout the world, and a lot of this chaos, and I call it for what it is, chaos that's out there in certain cities in our globe, a lot of that came from upbringings, came from teachings of society, came from, there's a fragmentation there, and our society needs to go back to its roots. And for example, what I did in March, made it mandatory to try to sit down every single night, the family conference table. The table could be inside the house, the table could be in the by the greenhouse or the pool or whatever. It could be right here around this table here, but try to have conversations daily. Right? Your conference room, your family table. And that table, that conversation, those organic integral meetings that are important is where I teach and where I am being taught. Right? Because they teach me every single day. And I teach them, just like my wife and vice versa, and throughout, right? And also we get to learn to know each other and grow old together. We get to understand each other better as we grow older because we all change throughout life. I can say that I've made an about face. I have, when I say change, man, I leaped off of the highway onto the Baja, and that's what I did. I literally in March, I leaped off the highway into the Baja, trust me, I'm going through the desert, but it's that bright sunshine up ahead in blue skies, I see it, right? But that restructuring, and again, this is all part of this lifestyle that I live, and I really believe I'm in a phase 2 of this lifestyle. That opened up many portals that were already there, and that fragmented, beautiful dyslexic mind. When you put it together and you clear up the sugars and the process and everything, it really, really, really makes you open up verbally. Right? Open up verbally. And I've always been the guy, the writing guy, the putting all the things together, et cetera, and a lot of the mission statements and all. That's me, right? I'm the guy, I'm the writer. I'm the guy for the emails. I'm the guy for everything like that. And then, but I started in podcast, basically, EFA, Equality for All, to start saying those things. And when I mentioned about the dyslexic mind and that verse that talked about how we put things together, all my life I've been told that I say things in a certain way that people can't get it out of their mouth. And I'm telling you, that is 80% of the population. 80% of the population. And I'm consistently told that, right? You say things and you put it together like, I want to say, but I can't. In all my life that has transpired. And when you look at that, and I look at government, and I look at business, and some of the best committees that I've been on, when I look at both my minds, the 27 years of government mind or 30 years of corporate mind and the dyslexic mind, when I look at those integral parts of the best groups that I've ever worked with in that both worlds were the committees that were joint. Those, and also those that had individuals that are truly impartial with each other and for the better good of the growth of the city, the growth of the community, the growth of, right? And and those that bring in that double-mindedness, right? And I talk about interminded. I believe to be interminded, and that interminded, when you have individuals at a table from both groups that completely understand each other because they've done it through knowledge, training, and experience. Some of those groups are the most, like, the best that's out there for you to put our system back together, right? If you were to put all these individuals together, these interminded individuals that understand government and business combined together, and like there's mindsets out there that just radiate with that knowledge, training, and experience from both levels and understand each other completely. You put them together, build a party across this nation of this kind of mindsets. This country, your entire tax base and fee base would probably drop this much. It would just, why? Because that productivity over time, that mindset, that change, and trust me, it's going to take a long time. But you get that mindset into the system. You get people thinking the same way because the leaders understand both sides very, very well and efficiently. And what is the best of everything for everyone when you look at equality, and the waste, how much of that waste would be replaced, right? The waste would be replaced with all efficiencies, great programs. The spending would be done like you're managing your own money. That's the mindset, but that mindset also believes in all these programs and all this integrity and the best of the nation together. Some of your statues out there from government, look at your statues. Those were leaders. A lot of those statues you see is because that person there, whether they're on a park bench in a bronze statue or a beautiful statues on Parliament Hill here in Canada, those individuals that were in government that made on standing up there is because they were brilliant and they broke through the group of mindset, and they managed to infiltrate into the world to make it a better place. And that's why they're standing on statues, because they merit it, right? They earned it. And the same thing in business. A lot of these people that attack those billionaires and zillionaires, gadillionaires, some of the biggest givers on earth, but you will never hear about it, right? Some of the most successful people on earth, your job is probably connected somehow to them, right? But you'll never hear about it. So whether it's business, whether it's government, in my 27 years of government, 30 years of business, when I look at core values, when I look at integrity and old school values of working, when you're walking around your foundation at the end of your day at a 40-degree humidex and making sure that your family name is in your product, making sure that the fabric of your father and your mother is still within you and instill that you're passing it on, you're teaching it on, and you're making sure, even if nobody's watching, because nobody was watching, but I can still see that that gentleman was taking his time and looking at his work and looking at his team's work and reviewing his final, you know what I mean? Okay, that was a good job today. All issues are fixed, right? That right there was taught. And that was taught, that was instilled, it's going to pass on forward. It will pass on forward. He will teach that. And I could see that he will teach that. And that fabric right there, that integrity, when you look at society, both government and business have it. They both do. And it was all in individuals. Some of the smartest, brilliant, most determined, driven, productive individuals that I've met in my life came from both groups. Both groups taught me. Both groups were fantastic. And it's in the person. It's basically in the person because it's taught and it came from somewhere. Some form of upbringing was taught and instilled in them and they passed it on. And a lot of those are leaders in government, they're leaders in business, and they bring people forward. And they somehow manage to break through and try, and or they move on. And that's what they do. If they can't break through, if they've exhausted everything, and that's why a lot of people lose leaders. And I've seen it in government and I've seen it in business, right? And if you can't, you realize after a point you can't, they move on, right? They just move on. And that's why you see the fractures. And that's why you see a lot of people in positions today that should not be there because leaders have left. Leaders have left. And it's sad, right? Get those people together. Get those committee mindsets of inter-minded individuals together across this nation. Form a new party or like you can build some of the strongest inter-minded party across this nation, your countries, whatever you have. And trust me when I say you will be living in a better world. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, EFA107.